Hey, how you doing? My name's Elton, I'm a Docker captain and a Microsoft MVP, and I've been using Docker for years. And it occurred to me that there are some ways that I use Docker every day which aren't all that well known. And that's the purpose of this series, Docker Nuggets. Each episode I'll focus on a Docker feature which is hopefully going to make your life in containers a lot easier. And this time, it's remote control using the Docker context commands. So let's get going. So let's talk about remote control for a second. So Docker kind of hides away this detail, but actually there are several moving parts when you're running containers. So first of all, you've got the Docker engine. And that's the thing that runs in the background, either as a Linux daemon or as a Windows service, and that manages your containers for you. As well as managing containers, the Docker engine has an API. So I've got my Docker API that's part of the engine. And when you run Docker commands, your CLI is actually talking to the API. So let's put my Docker command line in here. And what this does, every time I issue a command, it sends it into the Docker API. Now, if you're running the Docker engine and the Docker command line on the same machine, so that's the case if you're using Docker Desktop or Docker CE, then the communication between the CLI and the API uses a private channel. So that would use either a Linux socket or a named pipe on Windows. And that's a secure channel, so the Docker API is only listening on that local machine and only processes on that machine can access the Docker API. But if you're running the Docker engine on a separate machine, so let's take this and make that a separate machine, you can configure the API to allow remote access. So part of my local command line on my laptop, I can connect to the Docker API, which might be running on a separate server in my data center or in the cloud. And there are different ways of configuring that remote access, from the unsecure plain text HTTP, which you should never use, through mutual TLS using certificates, through to SSH. And that client communication to a remote engine, that's what I'm going to be talking about in this episode. So I'm running Docker Desktop on Windows. So if I do Docker version, you'll see I'm running on an Intel server and I'm running Windows containers at the moment. But I also have on my network, I have a remote machine, which is the server I'm going to use for my Docker context examples. So I can connect to that with SSH and use my password. This is an ARM machine, a bit like a Raspberry Pi, but this happens to be a ROC64 chip. If I use the right clear command, I can see that I've already got Docker installed on here. So I'm running Docker 1903.5, and this is an ARM64 machine. So Docker's cross-platform, so I can run it on ARM, that's fine. So this is a terminal session on that remote server, but I don't want to do that when I want to manage containers. I want to be able to do that just through my local Docker command line, and that's what I'm going to set up. The first I'm going to set that up is a way that is completely unrecommended, so allowing unsecure access to my Docker engine. So the way I do that is I'm going to edit my Docker configuration file, so nano/ect docker daemon.json. First time you install Docker, you might not have a daemon.json file. I don't have one here, but that's fine. And on the left-hand side here, these notes are all up on GitHub. This is the configuration that I need to put in. And that's telling Docker to listen on two different channels. FD is the Linux socket, so that's the private channel. When I'm connected to on the machine, my local Docker command line can talk to the local Docker API. And then the TCP channel is going to allow remote connections over the network on port 2375, which is the conventional port for allowing unsecured access to your Docker engine, which you should never do unless it's just in a demo. Okay, so let's write that file and exit it. This is a brand new machine with Docker installed, and it's based on Debian. And when you edit the Docker configuration in this way to specify the host you want to listen in, there's a collision between the configuration in my config file and the configuration in the Docker service. So I need to update my Docker service here. And you only need to do this the first time you're editing something on Debian, if you're using Debian Linux. So let's go and edit my Docker service command, and all these docs are up on GitHub. So it's going to look at my Docker service, and this is the problem right here. So the command to start the Docker daemon includes an H flag, which is the host flag, telling it to listen on the private channel. And I've also got that specified in my Docker config file, so there's a conflict and Docker won't start if it has two different conflicting host parameters. So all I'm going to do is delete that H from in here. So it will use just the details from my config JSON file. So let's exit that out. Now I need to reload my configuration. And I need to restart my Docker service. So this is nothing really to do with Docker context. I'm setting up my engine to allow remote access. And because of the installation on Debian, I need to change that configuration. So I'll just check that everything is running. And that all looks good. Okay. So back to the main docs, I've set up my configuration file. And now if I open a new terminal, so this is my local machine, I can access the Docker API directly, making an HTTP GET request. So that's what the raw Docker API looks like. You can go to the Docker docs and you'll see all the API endpoints. You can start containers, you can delete containers, you can list all the images, all that sort of stuff. Everything the command line does is an API call. And I can also specify the host parameter in a Docker command, and that's going to connect to my remote machine. So this is all happening on plain text HTTP. There's no authentication and no encryption, but it's a quick, easy way to get up and running. Now, the problem with this is I have to specify this host parameter with every call that I make, or I put that into an environment variable, and it's a bit difficult to manage, and that's where Docker context comes in. So Docker context is a relatively new command. It's been available since Docker 1903, and it's a way of managing your remote engines. So I can create a new context, and all I'm doing here is I'm giving my context a name, Rock64 Insecure. I'm telling it it's a Docker connection, because you can also use context to work with remote Kubernetes clusters. And here's the connection details. So this is the same thing that I passed into my Docker command up here. So I'm creating my context. And now clear the screen out here. If I look at the Docker version command, this is my local machine running on Windows. If I switch to my new context, Rock6401 Insecure, and now I do a version again. My client is my local machine, which is my Windows machine, and my server is my remote Docker engine, which is my ARM64 board. So it's a really nice way of just connecting to that remote machine without having to constantly pass parameters in all my commands. And once you've got access to the Docker engine, you can do anything that you want to do. So I can run a container in here. So Docker container run, this is just a really basic Apache image. This is a whole brand new engine, so it doesn't have any images installed. It's going to pull down this sample Apache image, extract it, and then run my web server container. So let's check that's running. Looks good, and I can browse and make sure that it's all up and running. There we go, that's my basic Apache, so that's all looking good. Now, you shouldn't really do this because anyone with access to your Docker engine can kind of do anything they want to do, including things like creating a container which bind mounts the local disk on the machine so they can read the contents of your server disk even though they don't have access to your server. And if you're allowing unsecured access to your Docker engine, you're just asking for trouble. So Docker gives you two ways to secure the engine. The first one is using TLS certificates, so the same technology that powers HTTPS websites. But Docker uses mutual TLS. So there's a certificate on the server as part of your Docker engine, which is going to be used to identify that it is who it says it is and to encrypt the traffic between the client. And you also have a certificate on the client to confirm who you are, and that gives you access to talk to the engine. So the communication is encrypted, but you also need those certificates both sides. Now, it's a little bit involved creating those certs, so there's some documentation here that shows you what you need to do. You basically need to run a whole bunch of OpenSSL commands to generate certificates. You need a certificate authority. You use that certificate authority to create your client certs, and that's what you use in the CLI. And then you use the same certificate authority to create your server certs, and you apply those to your Docker server, and that's how you secure the communication channel. Now, all the docs are here, and if you go up to the top here, there's a really good blog post by Stefan Shearer, who works for Docker, which tells you how to wrap all this stuff up into a Docker image to make it super simple. But I've already done this stuff because you don't want to see me running OpenSSL commands. So I've already done all that. And I've copied those certificates around. So inside here on my client, if I have a look at my Docker certs, you'll see I've got my certificate authority, my local certificate, and my local key. So that's for my encrypted connection from the command line. Back on my server, if I clear this down and I look at my certs, for my generated certificate authority, the server cert, and the server key. So those are all the kind of prerequisites that I need. Now to use TLS, I need to change my Docker engine configuration. So let's use the right clear command, and I'll go and nano my Docker daemon JSON file. So I'm going to change two things. So firstly, I'm going to stop listening on port 2375 because the convention for secure access is 2376. And then I need to put in the TLS configuration. So let's copy this from here. And this configuration is saying when you come in through the network using my TCP access, you have to use TLS. So you have to present your client certificate, and this is the part of the server certificate. So this is configuring that mutual TLS from the engine side. Okay, so let's save that, exit, and restart my service. And anytime you edit the Docker configuration, it's always worthwhile just doing a quick version check to make sure the server is up and running again. Okay, so that looks good. So now, back to my local terminal session. So now my engine's configured to use TLS for remote communication. I can create a new context. So I'm just using the same Docker context create command, give this a new name, and then the new parameter is I'm using port 2376, and I'm also including the paths to all the certificates. So my certificate authority, my client cert, and my client key. Okay, so let's connect with that. So that all looks good. So now I can switch to using that context. I can check the version. So I should see, same as before, that my client is Windows running on Intel and my server is Linux running on ARM. And because I'm now connected and this is all going securely over mutual TLS, I can go and look at the logs from my Apache container that's up and running. Okay, so now because I've configured this to use TLS, the previous configuration that I had isn't going to work anymore. So if I try and browse using this context, it works. It says the current context is the insecure one, but if I look at my container list, I'm going to get an error. So it's not listing on port 2375 anymore. Now, if I try to access the API directly using port 2376, I'm going to get an error saying that this is now HTTPS. You've got to give me your TLS certificates if you want to talk. Okay, so this is the secure way of doing it. There's some overhead in managing all those certificates and distributing them to the clients and rotating them and all that sort of stuff, but this is a nice secure way that works across any kind of instance of Docker. So I can deploy the certificates on a Windows server or a Linux machine, and I can use a Windows client or a Linux client, and everything just kind of works. Now, the other option, if you don't want that overhead of managing the certificates, is to use SSH. So SSH is the secure shell, which has been used in Linux for years. That's how I'm connecting to my ARM server in my other session. You can also use it with Windows. So this is now cross-platform as well, because you can run an open SSH server on your Windows machines. So you can access your Docker engine using SSH over Windows. But it's much more familiar in the Linux world. So if you want something cross-platform, I'd still recommend the TLS certificates. But if you want to use SSH, you don't need to do anything fancy because it's already up and running. As long as you've got an SSH user on the machine that's a member of the Docker group, then that's kind of all you need. So I'm going to create a Docker context. I don't need to edit my engine at all because this is just using SSH as a channel. So the difference is in the host, I'm using SSH. This is my username, dietpy, and the name of my computer. So that looks good. If I switch to using that context, and I run a quick Docker version, I have to put in my passwords. My SSH session here is not using an SSH key, so I need to use a password every time that Docker connects, but you see it works in the same way. So my local Windows client, my remote Linux machine, I can go and remove this container because I have access to the Docker engine, which means I can do anything, but each time I need to put in my password. So for real, I wouldn't be doing this. I'd be using an SSH key, and that link there will show you how to do that, so I don't need to put in my password. I need to manage my key on my client there. The downside with the SSH approach is that you need to have that user that exists on the server. So you need to create a user who has access to the Docker engine on the server for each person that you want to have access with SSH. And then you need to manage the SSH keys. But if you're in a Linux environment and you have admins who are distributing access to servers, you're probably doing that stuff anyway. So that's not such a big deal. Okay, and the last thing I want to cover is different ways to use that context. So I've been using the docker context use command, and that's not the only way to switch from one machine to another. So I'll switch back to my default context, which is my local machine. And I can see all the docker context subcommands, so I can create and list and remove them. That's all pretty standard, but I can also export them, which is a really nice way of sharing context between the team. And I can then just do a docker import from a tar file or a zip file, whatever, however I've done the distribution. Now I've got a whole bunch of context here. So if I do a docker context list, these are all the nodes in my local swarm. So I've got a whole bunch of stuff that's running locally on my network. I've got context for each of those because I switch between those things all the time. But I don't use the docker context use command that I've been showing you so far, and I'll show you why. If I do a docker context use, Pine 6401, this is one of my swarm managers. So this is a manager node. I can kind of do anything on here. And my managers are also running some quite important software. So they're running my DNS server and they're running my reverse proxy for all the other stuff that's running in my network. Now, because I've switched the context using docker context use, that's a permanent change until I run the command again and change to a different context. So if I switch up a completely new session, maybe I'm starting the day and I want to clear down all my containers, I'm going to do a docker container RM, but before I do that, I should probably just check that there's nothing running. And if I do a docker container list, that's when I realized that this session, which is a completely new session, is connected to my Swarm manager because I changed the context in the previous session. So this is a workflow thing, but personally I prefer not to change context with Docker context used because you're going to forget that something's running and you're going to delete a whole bunch of containers and a whole bunch of volumes and lose a bunch of stuff. So let's close down this session, go back to my normal session. So my preference is always to stick with the default context. And if I look at that list, that default context actually tells you, it'll tell you it uses the current host-based configuration. So actually you can switch contexts by using an environment variable. So let's give my Docker version in here. And this is my local machine. So local Windows command line, local Windows server. If I switch the context using an environment variable, so on PowerShell, I'm going to use env to set Docker context to Pine6401. On Linux, I would use export Docker context, and that's going to change the context, but only for this session. So now if I do a Docker container ls, those are my important containers that are running on my Swarm manager. If I switch to a new session and do Docker container ls, then I'll see I've got nothing running. So if you switch context using the environment variable, it only exists for that session. It's a much safer way of doing stuff. So that's my recommendation. Okay, so that's Docker context. It's a really useful command if you're managing lots of machines, whether there's a remote service in the cloud or your local Raspberry Pi or whatever you're using. It's a really nice way to switch between them and manage all the servers you've got access to. Now, if you want to try this stuff out for yourself, here's a short link to my GitHub repo. And that will just take you to all the docs that I've walked through. So here are all the examples that I've done. You'll need to put your own server name in there, unless you've got a server called rock6401.6ide, which I'd be surprised. And then inside here, there are also those other documents that I talked about. So there's my TLS cert with all the OpenSSL commands, and also the Debian service update. If you change the Docker config with the daemon.json and your engine won't start anymore, then here's what you need to do. Okay, so I hope you found that useful. I've got a whole bunch of other stuff in my Docker book that I've just finished that you can browse to with isgood/diamol. It's called Learn Docker in a Month of Lunches. You can get it now from Manning. It's got all the stuff about context and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I hope you find that useful too. My name's Elton. Thank you for listening, and I'll join you in the next episode.